So, good day to all of you. We have a really exciting discussion lined up ahead of us. The topic of the discussion is how AI helps us with enterprise investments and in creating differentiators. So, we're going to focus on critical themes such as modernizing legacy systems, building trusted and scalable data foundations, operationalizing AI at scale, and aligning talent, culture, and governance to drive long term success. I have a very distinguished panel here ahead of me. So, firstly, I am Arun Krishnamurthy. I am an advisor with Zinnov, and I'll be the moderator for this call. Just in terms of introductions, I think we'll go ladies first. So we have Shiv Priya. Shiv Priya is with the Ford Motor Company, and she's a senior director for the enterprise data platform. She's responsible for the global engineering organization and next gen AI platforms. She also has a rich background before Ford. She's worked at Alcatel, Huawei, PayPal, etc. So welcome, Shivpriya. Then we have Peter Schmutzer. Peter is the director ER&D ecosystem and alliances for Intel. So we'll be really keen to hear about how the semiconductor industry is using AI, because obviously you're at the cutting edge. But Peter is the global ecosystem partnership and outsourcing head, helping enterprises modernize engineering and R&D through AI. So welcome, Peter, to the call. Then we have Shiv Kumar from Johnson Controls. Shiv Kumar is the VP for software engineering and the head for OpenBlue India. Again, I think the whole industrial sector is going through significant disruptions, smart factories, IoT enablement, etc. So we'd be keen to hear your views as well. And of course, we have Adam Kaplan from Altimetric. Adam is the AI and data leader. Previously, he was the emerging tech lead for Salesforce. And of course, I'm sure Altimetric, being a global leader in digital solutions, you must be having a significant viewpoint in terms of how AI can help with these investments. So without much ado, we'll jump straight into it. So let me start with the first question, and I'll probably offer this to Peter. So the first question is on value creation. And probably before that, I'll just set some context in terms of some numbers. Is that obviously we hear about AI a lot. There's significant amount of investment which is going in. Apparently, Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, and Meta put together have invested close to $400 billion in AI, which is a huge number. There's a report which states that almost 1/3 of companies will spend almost $25 million or more on implementing AI within their ecosystem. And of course, Gen AI, which is gaining a lot of ground, almost 33.9 billion has been invested in Gen AI. And of course, there's a lot of startups and there's a lot of mergers and acquisitions which are happening. And companies are looking at both organically getting AI capabilities, but also inorganically making acquisitions. So with this, the first question is on, and to Peter, is on value creation. So Peter, where do you see AI delivering the next wave of enterprise growth? And this is in terms of growth, cost, and risk in the next 12 to 24 months, and what's driving the shift?
Yeah, appreciate for being here. Thank you for the warm introduction, Arun, and very happy to be alongside the others on this call and talk about a very timely conversation on AI, because the next wave of enterprise value really comes from moving AI out of the lab. It needs to go into production. I guess we have seen multiple POCs around the globe in our own company, all over the industry, but we are not necessarily leaving the POC stage as much as we want to do this. And hence, I guess talking about AI is not effectively enough. It really needs to start going beyond imitation of what we have been doing and into innovation. For me, this really kind of one example that is very sticky to me is when I think about the AlphaGo example. Yeah. Because when we kind of saw this playing against the human champion in the first place, it was a stunning result, because Go was so a complicated game and trained on the best moves that human had played over 1,000 of games in many years. It was a stunning result. But effectively, AlphaGo really started to kind of create value and kind of be more than or better than anything else is when we started to understand and trained it between AI systems. So it was an AI training an AI and not being human-centric in the sense of imitating what we feel was best moves. And I guess the same holds true for creating value with AI in the enterprise environment. Too much of what I see in practice today and even in the labs is imitating and maybe automating how we are doing things rather than really kind of giving the AI to the chance to strive and to do something different and to kind of be native in its creation or in its proceed. And I guess that is really the next 12 to 24 months requirement is to move this out of the lab and bring it into production. And then I guess from a semiconductor, from an Intel perspective, I guess it's also about orchestrating the infrastructure. Most of AI today sits in the cloud, so it's centralized by learning for its learning systems in the cloud, and that is appropriate and that works well. But there needs to be a move into the edge for inference. If we really want to unleash AI and want to have inference play, we need to create devices that are working and are creating or kind of orchestrating the data in the edge. And all of this eventually is fueled by acceleration through advanced semiconductors, because that's for me, the infrastructure that kind of is required to create the value that needs to come soon.
Fantastic. And some great points. And I think you make a very good point that it has to move from POC to production. And it has, I think it's done well in a lab environment. How do we start using it in the real world? And of course, AlphaGo was a great example. I think very, like you said, complicated, sophisticated game. And, a lot of rules which have gone in. Of course, being in the semiconductor industry, you must be at the thick of it because, everything runs on semiconductors and you're supplying the infrastructure. And, I think it's a good time to be in that industry as well. A lot of things happening. Thank you so much for that, Peter. I'll go to Shivpriya now. Again, I think automotive is right at the cutting edge. There's lots happening with autonomous driving, with ADAS and, electrification, tremendous technology shifts. So we'd be interested in your viewpoint and how you see this panning out, Shivpriya.
Sure. Thank you, Arun. And thanks, Peter, for sharing such valuable insights on this front. From Ford's perspective, we see AI creating the next wave of enterprise value across all the dimensions that you mentioned, growth, cost, and risk. And in each of these, I would like to highlight a few examples, right? Like on the growth front, two things that I wanted to highlight, or two areas that we wanted to highlight was first, our connected vehicle platform is becoming a true differentiator. By leveraging AI on top of the rich vehicle data, we can now deliver very high personalized in-vehicle experiences, predictive maintenance, proactive recommendations, and feature usage insights that creates every drive very unique, right? It also helps us identify underused functions that can help us simplify the design and without compromising the customer experience. That's the key. And a testament to this is, very recently in the 2025 Global Informs Analytics Plus conference, and Inform stands for Institute of Operation Research and Management Sciences, Ford bagged the top prize in the IAAA award, which essentially was for the project optimizing product feature offering through connected vehicle analytics, intelligent sampling, and generative AI. The second area is, of course, like everybody is interested in autonomous and driver assist technologies. It could be adaptive cruise control, lane assist, hands-free driving. AI is just reshaping safer, more autonomous journeys. And these are not just experiments, they are real growth levers in customer value and brand loyalty. On the cost front, the entire industrial systems, process is undergoing a lot of revolutionization in multiple fronts. And some which I wanted to highlight was certainly one is supply chain optimization, which is driving where AI is driving huge impact. AI models are helping us forecast demand more accurately, mitigate the disruptions, which are now huge levers, especially in a very volatile global environment, right? And then the second is across our engineering and operations. AI is certainly streamlining a lot of quality checks, defect detection, predictive maintenance, thereby reducing downtime, improving the product reliability significantly. And these efficiencies directly not only reduce cost, but also, of course, the customer satisfaction. When it comes to risk, governance is then our centrifugal force, I would say. At Ford, AI governance is central to how we design, deploy, or even monitor AI, ensuring compliance, transparency, and resilience against misuse. But governance alone, we believe, is not enough. We embed human in the loop oversight in critical decision pathways to safeguard against bias and upholding against the ethical AI. So for this certainly is a non-negotiable principle for us, where customer trust and safety must remain at the heart of every system, every AI-enabled system. So just to summarize, AI is helping us grow through connected vehicles, autonomous vehicle experiences, cutting costs through smarter supply chain and operations, and then managing risk through stronger governance and human oversight. That's how we are at least unlocking sustainable enterprise value in the next 12 to 24 months.
Very insightful. And you covered the whole spectrum, I guess, right from the customer experience, the personalization, to the product, to the connected cars, to the shop floor in terms of quality, and then governance and cybersecurity as well. So thank you so much for that. I will next move to Shiv Kumar for this. Shiv Kumar, again, I think the industrial space, a lot happening. You're seeing a lot of transformation, and I think you will see more going forward as well as it becomes mainstream. But your views, please.
Yeah, thanks, Arun. Thanks, Shivapriya. At least in our case, the complexity is less. Buildings are stationary, not like vehicles which is moving. But our experience says through our open blue single pane of glass platform, which is nothing but a Salesforce and ERP for a building, right? So I think domain-specific AI use cases really yielding benefits, particularly in the space of energy efficiency and customer experience, right? And as you all know, in the industrials, AI has been there for a couple of decades. Of course, it's rule-based, FTD rules, etc. But the shift is how do we make it more data-driven AI? So that's the only shift, right? But in the industrial space, we have been in AI for at least more than a couple of decades. But what we are seeing now, similar to what Shivapriya was telling. So one is on the predictive maintenance part of it. And at the same time, we get a lot of alerts, right? The value is how do we focus maniacally on the problem and then value in whose lens? From the customer's lens, from the solution provider lens, which is Johnson Controls, and from a stakeholder's perspective, right? Yes, technology is cool, but what problem it's trying to solve? I think if that's what we have been focusing, and in what cases, for example, if you go to a persona and then take a technician, I mean, there'll be deluge of alarms and they wouldn't even know which one to focus upon. So that's why if we leverage AI-based techniques and then really sort out and then say, these are the vital alarms which can be actionable, that can actually right shift the investment on capex of heavy chillers to really go replace, right? So that's the kind of predictive things we are seeing. And then the second thing is, Shivapriya touched upon smart and autonomous. At least in the building space, we are moving from smart towards autonomous. Let's take an example of GenAI. In one of our customers, the persona we did an interview, they said, "Hey, I don't want to do prompt. So get me a solution to do away with." So that's why we went to move from smart to autonomous, but still keeping human in the loop, because overarching AI principles is what we drive with, but still ensure that autonomous, based upon the data patterns and thresholds, how it can really solve the energy problem. And third thing is, particularly across the spectrum, various verticals of buildings, sustainability is one thing which is cutting across, and AI is playing a huge role, particularly in making net zero goals achievable and then greener itself. So this is what our point of view on the value delivery, value in the eyes of the customer, value in the eyes of the solution provider, and of course the other stakeholders like shareholders and the board as well.
Fantastic. And I think the point that you make on sustainability, climate control is really important, because I think on one hand with AI, we have these huge data centers and farms where we are consuming lots and lots of electricity. So we need more industries who can look at how we can become more efficient and carbon neutral. And of course, you make a very valid point that in the industrial scenario, you have so many sensors that throws up so much of data, rich data, which can be leveraged. And I guess that's a nice segue to you, Adam, because Altimetric has got some very significant differentiators in AI and how you analyze data and data analytics. So we'd be really interested in your viewpoint on this topic.
Yeah, sure. No, thanks so much, Arun. It's great to meet everybody. I think we're seeing a lot of value. We're really seeing a wave in citizen development. And what I mean by that is we've been fortunate to be one of OpenAI's early partners from a consulting and engineering standpoint. So we're seeing a lot of clients leverage ChatGPT Enterprise in a scaled wall-to-wall fashion. And it's been really interesting. We're seeing thousands of users, whether it's HR, marketing, legal, sales, service, just leverage these tools, build their own custom apps or custom GPTs specific to their functions. And it's really driving a ton of adoption, a ton of usage, a real cultural impact on the company, a lot of short-term ROI with minimal cost from needing to integrate with internal systems, needing to set up MCP servers and get all the data perfect and all this kind of stuff. So we're seeing that wave. At the same time, what we're seeing is obviously there's then the really strategic, we call them the big rocks. Okay, I want to build an agent that will handle everything a junior salesperson would do, an agent that'll be non-human in the loop for the call center. So these are bigger, more complicated. We need to assure the ROI of each one of these builds because you're either going to build them as an organization internally, or you're going to leverage a firm like us to help you build it or co-create in some fashion. So we're seeing this wave of citizen development. It's almost like electricity. It's just buzzing. It's flying through the companies, and companies are like, okay, we know, we're not tracking the ROI of the lights and the power. Let's let this run. But at the same time, they're going to have a really rigorous ROI process around these bigger rocks. And we're seeing, the obvious places companies prioritizing like call center and sales, and of course, efficiencies in various places. What that then leads to, though, with these two waves is like Shiva Priya brought up. How do you think about the governance then across this? Because you have this wave and then you have the big ones. So we can talk more about that later, but that's a huge trend we're seeing where you get immediate ROI and then you have like the big rocks that still are taking some time. And like Peter said, we need to get those into production. And we're definitely seeing companies get them in production, but it's a much bigger lift.
Right. No, very interesting. And I read somewhere that until now, content has been created with human personas as consumers. But going forward, it's going to be more and more agents who are scrolling and who are crawling the web. So the future content creation the customers will actually be agents and bots who will actually be consumers of content, and then they will summarize it and throw it up. So yeah, a lot of exciting stuff happening, and that's probably the next pivot which will happen. So, but thanks for that, Adam. I think we go to the next question, which is on the investment lens. And what makes an AI initiative investment grade in your organization? And how do you ensure it delivers sustainable outcomes beyond pilots? And I'll mix it up a bit. So maybe Shivkumar, I'll come to you first on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are several trends going on, right? There is a macro trend which is going on. There's a bit of a hype, right, and hope, right? So around AI, agentic AI, etc. So that's one thing is happening. And at the same time, we are living in a VUCA world, right? Highly volatile, unambiguous, chaotic, right? And really unclear or whatnot. So this is the second thing which is happening now. And thirdly, more and more, the CFOs are becoming digitally savvy, right? When we go for any AI-based projects or a product development, I mean, it's a 1-minute call. What's the ROI and what's the KPI, etc. It's a make or break deal, and the meeting is over, right? So all these things are happening. So how do we really look at from an investigative perspective? So for example, we had to augment our board of directors who is AI first thinker, right? So they ask the right questions of, hey, where we want our company to grow. It starts from there. And then what happens is there are a lot of projects and ideas coming in, both bottoms up through hackathons, etc., and also top down from various initiatives. So how do we really put a framework through a governance process and then really go through all the principles of privacy by design, scalability, fairness, and ROI, etc. So once we do that, then we really look at, okay, is it going to scale, right? Pilot to production or whatnot, but it's not enough to deploy the solution in one region. But we being a global company spread across the globe, how do we comply to the local norms and at the same time deploy this so that the ROI or some of the KPIs like annual recurring revenue, there are several business models, right? It's still evolving. But if I take software as a service paradigm, so how do those AI models generate equivalent amount of revenue so that there's a considerable non-linear profitability margin? Once we talk this language, then the CFOs are even willing to listen to us saying that, okay, come go for the presentation. So that's number one. And number two, most importantly, yes, the solution is cool, but how do we reap the benefit from an end customer standpoint? The change management is very, very important, right from top to the bottom, who is going to consume the model and act on the insight that the AI model is supposed to solve. So that's why understanding the stakeholders and then really looking at bite-sized thinking, fail fast, you experiment, and then you scale up. So that's going to be very, very important. And as the budget scenarios are differing from industry to industry, think frugal, act fast, fail fast, as long as it's not expensive, but try to close the loop and then learn from it and then move.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, really good points. And I think a lot of the cool startups have the luxury of raising a lot of money, and they're actually measured by how much money they can spend. But I think a lot of us in the real world have to think ROI. So I think the points you made on governance and on getting AI skilled people on the board definitely makes a lot of sense. Adam, your viewpoint on this?
Yeah, I love what Siva Kumar said by the way, about fail fast, be okay with that, agility. And what we recommend to all our clients is don't just outsource to us. Like, this is a strategic differentiator for your organization, building these AI muscles internally. And so, sure, leverage us, co-creation, absolutely. But it's too important and imperative just to outsource. So I love what he just shared there. I would say, like, Arun, what you started with is the data, right? And, it's almost cliche, the AI is only as good as the data. But of course, it's true. What we recommend to get to that ROI and get to scale quickly is don't embark on some like 3 to 4 year, we're going to set up the most amazing, beautiful data lake. We're going to get our data perfect. It's going to be amazing. It's going to transform the company. Or sure, maybe you're doing that, but think about data per use case for the particular AI use case you're trying to solve right now and get the data ready for that use case. So then you can get in that, just like Siva Kumar was saying, that flywheel of, okay, we have data attached to that LLM. It's domain specific. It's relevant for us. Our users will get real value that knows our customers. It's connected to Salesforce. It's connected to SharePoint. It's connected to your Zoom transcripts. It's connected to your Databricks, your Snow, whatever it is. If it's not contextually relevant, your users, they won't love it, right? Like, maybe they'll get some value if it's a bit more generic. So I think ROI starts with getting the data right and hooking it to the use case and going fast. And then the other thing, just from an ROI perspective, just to share, is we're seeing an interesting trend where some companies have like a very well-controlled advisory board around AI, and any of those big rocks we were talking about has to go to this board for approval before anybody touches hands on keyboard. Everyone's got the use cases, right? And then ROI is traditionally, okay, are we saving money? Are we going to enable a call center person to also sell? So we're not reducing, companies don't like to say they're reducing headcount. We're not reducing headcount. We're taking away the easier stuff. So we're letting people do more. That's the typical thing. Now, what they say at the board level versus what they say with their teams is a little bit different. We hear a lot about just tool rationalization. And then we obviously hear about like revenue increases. I would say the hardest thing from an ROI justification at the board level is self-reported time savings. That one always, when it gets to that advisory board or gets to the board, people are like, am I really buying that? Even though I do think there's real value there. We met with a financial services company yesterday, a big one, and I was fascinated. For speed purposes, they've gotten rid of that advisory board. They first had it, and they were going through all of it for all their apps, and they just kind of got stuck a little bit. They now have a 5-person board. It's a big company. Those 5 people make all the decisions and just like go, no, go. So I love that. It's a little more nimble. And then you complement that with a citizen development, and then you're kind of off to the races.
Fantastic. So I think, obviously the importance of data, I think getting an advisory board, making sure that they integrate with various applications in this ecosystem and outside, I think all that is super critical as well. Let me go to you, Peter. I think we're keen to hear your perspective.
Yeah, and I guess I already loved what Adam was saying, because I truly believe that AI is not a single person or single company game. It requires the ecosystem to come together. I'm pretty sure we have a more dedicated discussion to this, so I don't step on it, but it ties to what I was thinking about what makes AI investments reasonable. And I guess at the end of the day, when we ask what makes an AI initiative investment great, I guess for me it's 3 things that stand out. It's scalability, it is trust, and there's sustainability. Because if these three anchors are being responded well, it is worth pursuing. Today, I see that too many of the initiatives impress really in just a demo in a lab, but really can't scale through the enterprise. And when I was preparing for the session today, I was thinking about a picture or something that kind of tells or kind of sets or underpins the argument. And for me, this is really, when I think about the investment lens, it is about the early railways. That was a point-to-point connection. It was two cities connected. The lines were not harmonized. One train to the other was not being supporting each other. So it was all isolated. It was a point-to-point discussion, and that was interesting. But it was at no point transformative. It only became transformative. It only became really kind of a change in how we are doing things when we harmonized the systems, when trains and the railway systems were coming together and kind of started to build an ecosystem and working together. And for me, AI is very similar to this. I see many pilots that work in isolation, but this is not good enough. We have wonderful POCs that work in the lab that solve a single use case very well. But investment-grade initiatives really must plug into the broader infrastructure. And I've stressed this before. That really means to me that we talk about cloud very much when we talk about AI, and that makes so much sense for training. If I'm building these large LLMs, if I'm building these large models that are building the foundation of what we're doing, cloud is the best place to host this. But that is not sitting in isolation. But it only works if we kind of bring the edge in, particularly for the inference part, when we kind of make use of what the tools have been learning, and then we start accelerating it to ensure the performance. And this at the end of the day for me is required to really make an investment in AI relevant or even investment grade. So it needs to solve more than just one use case. It needs to be deployable across multiple points.
Yeah, wonderful. And I think the analogy of the railways was really good. It brings home, the maturity that we still need to go through. I think there's a lot of cool technology, but actually making it work and making it add value to us is something that we still are working on. So, Shivpriya, on to you on this.
Yeah, I think a lot of valuable insights has already been shared. So I'll just very briefly touch upon, from a Ford perspective, we actually view every AI initiative through a very disciplined investment lens, some of which I think Adam was touching upon, but we define the investment grade AI by, three criteria that I would want to highlight. The first, there has to be a very clear business case co-created by our business partners and validated by the finance. So we have very stringent success criteria like hard metrics, like what we define as internal rate of return, where we expect returns within a stipulated time period. This is the first criteria. Second, the AI initiative must be meaningful in deriving velocity gains. What that means is freeing up thousands of hours per team member each year to reinvest in higher value work. And the third could be to advance compliance, safety, or risk avoidance, because these things are considered as non-negotiables at Ford. And overall, how we classify the impact is either direct impact that shows onto the P&L, reducing cost or driving revenue. And there, what happens is our business partners commit that value in their financial forecast. There could be indirect impact as well that may not show up in the P&L, but is equally powerful in avoiding cost, accelerating delivery, ensuring regulatory compliance, and most importantly, keeping our customers and employees safe. So ultimately, all of these AI initiatives we fund are those that demonstrate both financial rigor and keep the enterprise value creation. That discipline actually helps us move forward from the pilots to become real and to sustainable outcomes, where the highest impact streams are the ones that are creating the most value per person, and where AI then becomes a true engine for Ford.
Great. Yeah, I love the three-point criteria. I think clear business case. Now, that sounds so simple, right? But it's probably the hardest one to get. Velocity gains, and then focus on compliance, safety, risk avoidance. Thanks a lot for that. Moving to the next question, and this one, we all like to build new systems and, new technology. But how are we modernizing legacy systems and data ecosystems to enable real-time, explainable, and resilient AI? Because on one hand, building new stuff is always easy, but when you have to carry the baggage of legacy and when you have to modernize that, how do you do that? So I'll start with you, Shivpriya.
Sure, sure. Thanks for the question. And this is a most critical factor. And in fact, I think Adam was touching upon on the importance of data and all. So at Ford, I would say that our journey to AI at scale is essentially anchored on two major transformation fronts. First is modernizing the legacy systems that you touched upon. So we've systematically migrated many of our core workloads and databases to manage services on the cloud. This isn't just a technical refresh, I would say. It's a strategic shift that has reduced a lot of operational overhead, improved resilience and uptime, and thereby unlocked scalability for all of our real-time use cases. So we did adopt a cloud-first kind of a strategy and philosophy by moving and integrating a lot of our manufacturing IoT pipelines, vehicle telemetry, and even internal systems into the cloud. We ensure the data is flowing continuously, APIs are reliable, and we can support always-on capabilities for our connected and autonomous vehicles. Now, the second most important is how do we build a strong AI-ready data foundation? Our vision here is to actually create a governed yet very flexible ecosystem that empowers the enterprise through self-service, collaboration, and compliance all in one platform. So at the center of this is our enterprise data platform, proudly leading that for Ford, on Google Cloud, which we've positioned as the Ford's single source of truth for analytics and AI. So we've adopted an architecture philosophy which is similar to data mesh in some kind, where distributing data ownership to business domains, but at the same time, we are still enforcing shared infrastructure, including the federated governance. What this allows is for innovation without fragmentation, and to avoid duplicate efforts, we follow a philosophy of build once, use everywhere. What that means is platform capabilities are developed centrally, but benefit everybody. So equally important, apart from the platform, is how do we enable democratization? So we are evolving from relying from hundreds of data specialists to empowering every employee to interact with the data directly through curated business-ready data sets and self-service tools. With AI now being infused into the platform, automating classification, enabling natural language queries, and even conversational interfaces to talk to your data, we are actually lowering the barriers to every employee so that they can actually get insights directly rather than depending on a data scientist, analyst, and all. So we are fiercely, aggressively marching towards that journey. The result is what is, into AI-ready data products that are actually high fidelity, well-modeled, and business-ready, requiring very little manipulation before you could use them. This is what is allowing actually Ford to operationalize AI at scale and also make it very explainable, real-time, resilient, and value-generating. In short, modernization removes the technical depth of yesterday, while our AI-ready data foundation now ensures every decision, every model is built faster, more explainable, and more impactful. And together, actually bringing these two fronts, our goal is not just being AI-enabled, but AI-accelerated.
Great, great. Sounds like a really big job. So all the best with that. I'm sure you have good success with that. Moving on to you, Adam.
Yeah, maybe just I love the thoughts there around compliance and on data. Maybe just to hit some of those same points. We had a conversation with a large pharmaceutical client who's one of our clients earlier this week, and one of the business sponsors asked, "Hey, sounds like the roadmaps are moving so fast from the OpenAIs, the Anthropics, the Google, etc. Like, are we just building all this code and then throwing everything away?" It was a really interesting discussion, and I think we are actually throwing a lot away is probably the real answer. So I think this question about architecture and data and modernization is such a critical question. Just an example of something I think is an okay throwaway that we were talking about is, back to data. If we're not linking the data to the LLMs, it's not domain specific, it's not contextual, your users won't, get that much value. So even something like that, we used to be brought on by our clients just to do that. Hey, connect my SharePoint, connect my Salesforce. It would take us a few weeks to connect it, and always a little harder than we expected. But then once it's connected, you have it. And then OpenAI and the others start coming out with connect. Oh, we built a pre-built connector. You don't have to do that custom code for SharePoint or Salesforce anymore and Slack. They're like, oh, well, that's throwaway. But then, the connectors are MVP. They don't work quite as well as we want. So you still have to do work, and then they get better. And now we have MCP servers. Every single conversation I'm in with a client now is about MCP servers and moving data and agnostic of the LLM. So like, oh man, that stuff is then that's more throwaway stuff. So I think what we focus on for clients is it's okay to have some of that. So plan for that from an ROI perspective, expect that. And then from a compliance perspective, we kind of think of it at two levels. So we have it at the GPT level, if you will, or these custom apps where we're setting up registries for clients, because a lot of times you have thousands of these custom apps created and clients don't even know what's out there. So we're basically building these agents. We call them guardian agents that basically check all these little GPTs that are created. Are they read write? Are they read only? Are they connecting to data internal systems? Are they browsing the web? Are they leveraging PII? Are there any security risks? What are they doing? Are they shared? How often are they shared? How often are they used? And enabling clients just to get their arms around that. And OpenAI has a compliance API you can leverage as a part of this. And there's other solutions to help you build this kind of stuff and LangChain, et cetera. But that's kind of at the GPT level. And then we're helping clients with is really more from an agentic scaffolding level to this point on sort of the real architecture. And that's where also things are moving so fast. But I think like Shiva Priya said, like setting that up. So whatever your tech stack, if it's AWS, if it's Azure, if it's custom or whatever, it's a GCP, getting all that in place from a security compliance perspective is pretty challenging. And then leveraging all the new tools like MCPs, et cetera. So we're on a lot with clients on sort of how to set up across all your AI initiatives, not just specific GPTs. Once you set that up, obviously there'll still be some throwaway, but at least you have that then that setting for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like we discussed earlier as well, it's a process of maturity. And I think we have to sort of go through these baby steps before we get to a software engineering model where, you can get it right the first time. So thanks for that, Adam. We'll move on to you, Peter, on this one.
I guess we all agree that the data effectively is the foundation for AI. But the real bottleneck is not actually the quantity, it is really the trust and the architecture, because that is what effectively is the next step, because we have plenty of data all over the place. But how much we trust it and how much we architecture the systems to work it out is a different thing. For me, this is similarly when we run our supply chain for a semiconductor fab, for example, right? It's kind of we really need to have a lot of information for manufacturing for the raw materials, for the quality of the materials to run the fab successfully, and that kind of creates a whole system of information. It works because we trust each other, because we have routines and regulations that support how the data is prepared and transmitted or kind of brought over. And this is really the key thing. We trust each other on this. And AI, we don't necessarily trust as much today. There's a lot of falsification and things they're doing. On the other hand, if you work and interact with a ChatGPT or whatever, Gemini or others, the outcome is so stunning and so natural in the moment that we're confused on whether it's true or not. I guess this probing in between is the very critical aspect, because on the one hand, I guess it's been trained, it's been built and centralized in the cloud. That works pretty well. But unless we kind of start distributing it and building hybrid architectures to ensure security and interoperability of the data, it really doesn't help us much. And I guess that is effectively the next step, or that's really what drives the evolution forward, is to ensure that these architectures are hybrid enough. And I stressed this before, it really is about the cloud for training as the foundation. And then you need inference in the edge, because if you kind of also transition the inference into the cloud, it's no longer sustainable. It's not gonna work. And you need semiconductors for the acceleration of the performance, because that's how we believe the future of these infrastructure to be, and our role in this really is to make sure that the compute foundation is AI native, so that the enterprises can effectively trust their data flows.
Fantastic. Yeah, I agree with you. I think trust is important, and that's a framework which cannot be compromised. Just Going down the table, I think Shivkumar, your viewpoint on this?
Yeah, so in our case, what is legacy, right? We are an industrial company transforming into a software industrial company. So we're talking about HVAC equipments. So first of all, we need to enable those equipments to collect data and then get the data out, right? So our first focus has to say, hey, how we can get the equipment be getting the data out. So that's the first part of it. And second thing, when we come to the software architectures, from a legacy perspective, it used to be monolithic. Now in the area of cloud and SaaS, etc., how do we make it more modular, microservices based, but yet secure and container based architectures, right? So that by itself is a huge investment. While we are doing that, how do we reduce the technology debt? Right, so that's a huge cost, because whenever we get into total cost of ownership, I mean, we are answerable to the CFOs, right? So while reducing the technology debt, how do you modernize the architecture? At the same time, the most important thing is not all need to be cloudified or SaaS based, right? We are talking about environments inside plant room or in hazardous area where internet connectivity also is going to be minimal. So what we focus on, how do we run AI models on the edge, right? Not on the full load, but whatever minimalistic analytics can be done out of our edge devices. Now, okay, the solution is ready. We go to the customer and then say, hey, can you open up this port? Can you open this Wi-Fi? So we are ready to deploy. There comes the trust and security question. It's extremely difficult to convince a CIO to get an approval to open up a firewall. So what we do is we invest in technologies like Airwall platform, so where it enables zero trust security on top of the overlaying over the current networks, so that it establishes a tunnel, so the data is secure. Once we get this data, then we focus on whether it should be done at the edge or at the cloud, etc. And most importantly, make it scalable and also comply to the region where it is deployed, whether it's China, whether it's Middle East or in Canada, in addition to other developed geographies as well. So these are some of the focus areas, and predominantly focus on all the LETs, right? I mean, which is very foundational: performance, reliability, scalability, security, etc. And once that is done, and then we really go a big bang approach and go full scale deployment.
Okay, fantastic, great perspective. So my next question is the elephant in the room, and that's on talent. So we're talking of AI, but you still need people to come and develop all of this. So what talent, operating model, or cultural shifts are proving most critical to embedding AI into the core? And I've been hearing reports where Meta and Microsoft have been offering $1 million salaries to lure AI engineers. So that made me think that I should sort of brush up on my programming skills and maybe start all over again. But let me start with you, Adam. Being a services company, I'm sure clients must be lining up at your door. There must be a huge demand. How do you service this? How do you build up the talent? How do you sort of make this real and deliver on time and keep to your commitments?
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing, and it's been a little bit surprising to us because historically we've been, engaged more by clients to, hands on keyboard. We have fantastic engineers, build this, build that. We also did a lot of technical assessment work. What we're seeing a huge shift now is we're seeing a lot of ask for training. And so now we've built up a whole training team. We even established what we call our Alti lab, where we're not only training our own engineers, we have a 101, a 102, like classic, just simplistic GPT writing. Okay, now we're integrating with internal systems. Now we're doing this, now we're doing that. So lightweight to like high leverage, whatever the latest roadmap and technologies are. And we're not only providing that to our internal employees right now, clients are saying, hey, can you set up training for our organization? So we're doing a lot of trainings, both engineers and not. And some of the things we're finding that's really valuable is really doing it by department for each company. So HR, marketing, legal, et cetera, not just the engineers. How can they leverage these tools? And back to that citizen development conversation we we're having at the beginning of the call, they can get so much value out of doing some things on their own and not having to depend on, hire some third-party firm or depend on your own engineers who are so busy to build everything for you. The beauty of these new AI tools is like you can actually do a lot of your own, right, with no code. So the key we're seeing to these trainings, though, is not obviously only having good content. You need good content, But meeting with each function before the trainings, we actually made some mistakes along the way because, CEO mandate, roll out AI, everyone's running so fast. So we were like, okay, let's go. And we do these big trainings. And we actually found more success where instead of the mass trainings, we said, okay, let's meet with each department ahead of time. Let's understand their core use cases. Let's build some small, simple custom apps that can be leveraged in the training. So it's their data, it's relevant to them. Then we do the trainings, and then it's a home run. So we've started to actually slow down a little bit and make sure we understand a little bit of workshopping, a little bit of use case definition, classic consulting 2x2, value, feasibility, catalog of use cases, ROI, but simplistic because we don't want to make that too big an exercise before we get to training and enable that just proliferation. So a lot of learnings there. But yeah, to your point, it's so hard to hire like new talent that's already skilled in whatever one of these technologies. So it's really what we're finding is this ability to train is so important for ourselves as well as our clients.
Yeah, fantastic. And that's interesting that not only are you training your own employees, but your customers as well and the ecosystem. So that's a complete different paradigm shift to way the industry operated. I'd be interested in your views, Peter.
Yeah, and I guess I'm building on this to some extent. For me, at the end of the day, it's not about hiring more data scientists. That is really not enough. It's not about the skill. It's about the cultural shift. Unless we embed AI fluency into the or across the enterprise in how we're doing things, it really doesn't scale. For me, AI at the end is like a modern calculator. I guess when the calculator was invented first, anyone feared that our human skills are being impacted. We are no longer calculating in the head, but we're using the calculator. So we are degenerating. The opposite is the case. The calculator helped us to solve more complex and bigger problems than before. And AI is on the same pace, right? It's not replacing people. It's kind of making groups or teams of people more smarter and helps us operate or kind of solve differentiated problems. I guess there is enough across the globe that needs to be solved and that all of us individually may not be able to do. So unless we take the fear away that AI takes or replaces people, will it replace some? Yes, for sure. Because the more transactional the nature of the work is, the more likely it is being replaced through an agentic AI, through a tool or a bot or something, a robot coming in and taking the work, for sure. But that creates new opportunities and allows us to kind of rethink and kind of solve different problems. And this is effectively what we are also trying in our own enterprises to kind of support our teams through smart deployments of agentic AI, through smart deployments of AI in design, right? I guess our semiconductor design for advanced nodes becomes so complex and complicated that the go-to-market is taking very long. If we take AI in and solve routine problems, if we kind of solving or shifting left on the verification side, so we kind of save on the post-silicon angle. It's kind of a super high ROI return. It doesn't take a person away. It just makes us get to market faster and solve more complex and more complicated problems. And I guess unless we start rethinking what AI is, instead of seeing it as a threat, but more like an enabler and a support, we will be stuck by hiring data scientists, and that won't solve our problems.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think the cultural angle is especially important. And as Peter Drucker said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So I think if you can get that right, then I think most things then tend to fall in place. Your views, Shivkumar?
Yeah, so particularly in a large industrial enterprise, globally distributed organization like us, demography plays a very important role, talent demography, right? So we have at one end of the spectrum, 30 years, 40 years of experience still working. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have Gen Zers entering the fold, right? So when we talk of AI, we have to address the entire spectrum of the demography. So our viewpoint, or my personal viewpoint, is different strokes for different folks. We cannot have one strategy for all that works globally and for across the thing. So you segment it. So for those who are on the left end of the spectrum, we need to go slow, make them understand the intent and what will happen if they miss the bus, so that they can be the so-called knowledge experts, so that they can leverage these tools for much faster, better, and then they can build the next generation of talent. Now, coming to the right end of the spectrum, for all the Gen Zers, I think we need to provide guardrails and a safe environment so that they can experiment and also come up with reward mechanisms, which is pretty cool. And then say, hey, okay, you can fail first, second, third attempt. So we are going to reward this. But at the end of the day, if you're going to produce outcomes, this is what you will get. Because we are living in a generation where instant incentivization is the most sought after, right? And my personal viewpoint is, I know there's, different big digital native companies are offering, several million. Beyond a certain point, zeros doesn't matter. I think the purpose and the intent of the work of an employee to a broader vision of the company, if we spend time to stitch that, I'm sure they will definitely stay, right? And also one important point which the previous speakers also touched about, yes, one is getting talent from outside, but how do we invest talent to reskill the existing folks? For that, more than the skill, the mind shift is important. So it's an ongoing basis through coaching mechanism, through leadership interventions, and also reverse mentoring, right? So some of the, hackathons, when you participate, we get a lot of ideas from them. So we have annual events where we kind of sponsor. So it's going to be a multi-strategy approach for a global diverse demography.
Yeah, I really like your point on segmentation for demography because it's different strokes for different people. And I think the reverse mentoring concept is, I think, more real than ever, if anything, at this point in time. I'll just hand it over to you, Shivpriya.
Yeah. At Ford also, I think it's very similar to what Shivkumar was mentioning. And embedding AI into the enterprise at Ford is not just about technology, it's all about the people and how we work. So on talent, we have a very, very undeterred focus on building a world-class organization. And that means nurturing our incredible internal talent and also bringing the brightest minds from the industry. So we are scaling, AI across a century-old company and across domains that span from product development to supply chain to customer experiences, and ensuring that our people not only understand AI, but can apply to where it matters the most. I think this dual approach that we are taking of growing from within and attracting external excellence gives us both the depth and the fresh perspective. And then when it comes to the operating model and the culture, I think Ford, again, being, we call it Ford Plus, a transformation that defines the what. So Ford Plus is nothing but the digital transformation across Ford, and it's all about delivering distinctive product experiences and solutions, building always on customer relationships, and continuously improving the customer experience through the fusion of great hardware and software coming together. Now, the how, that was the what piece, and the how piece comes together with our Ford operating system, or the Ford OS that we call very lightly, which anchors on how we run the business with rigor, discipline, and a very problem-solving mindset. At the heart of the Ford, like, we have our OS behaviors, and our key tenets revolve around excellence, focus, and collaboration. While excellence drives us to raise the bar and innovate with purpose, focus pushes us to prioritize only what matters most to our customers and to Ford. And collaboration, of course, ensures that we seek diverse perspectives, solve problems together, and work for the whole enterprise and not just our part. So when we bring all these three dimensions together, that is the world-class talent, the Ford Plus vision, and the Ford OS culture, we are creating a foundation where AI doesn't sit at the edges, but becomes a core DNA of the company. And that's how we are transforming Ford into a truly AI-ready enterprise.
Fantastic. And I think for a century-old company to reinvent themselves, I think must be an interesting journey and a lot of work and a lot of vision and leadership that goes in. So thanks for that. So it's been a great discussion so far. I think we're down to our last question, and I think we're also sort of keeping an eye on the clock, running quite tight on time. So I wouldn't like to call this a rapid fire round, but if you could just give me some quick highlights in terms of partnership and ecosystem. So how do you balance building in-house versus partnering? So what do you build versus what do you buy? So if you could just give me some really quick highlights, that will be useful. So I'll start with you, Peter.
Yeah, and I guess we touched on this before. At the end of the day, AI at scale is never a solo journey. It's something that requires the ecosystem to come together and kind of build things in lockstep. it's like if I look into where we have been coming with the semiconductor industry today, in order to enable all of this, it's not been built on an isolation. It's not been built on a single company. It has been an ecosystem, but together achieved to Moore's Law strive. It was the co-innovation across material science, lithography, design automation, manufacturing equipment, and packaging that ultimately kind of brought this industry forward. And that's the same for AI. AI will evolve in the same way. If it is cloud only, if it is software only, that's not enough. It's really about a hybrid ecosystem that kind of co-innovates and works together to drive this evolution to the next step, to the next level. And that's exactly what our focus at Intel is. It's working with partners across the value chain so as enterprises can adopt AI safely, scalable, and ultimately sustainably.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Shivkumar?
Yeah, it's a business imperative. So definitely partnership with OEMs, etc., to really bundle a solution together to solve a customer problem. That's number one. Number two, also organizations like Zinnov and NASSCOM. So how do we, as an industry, come together, industry, academia, and government, and also coming out with a curriculum for AI so that we build the next generation talent pipeline. So that's what we can give to the community so that we build the next generation of talent so that it is self-sustainable. So definitely ecosystem is the business imperative. I totally agree with what Peter said. It's just not one team, but it takes a herd mentality to really go build it and sustain it.
Okay, great. Shivpriya?
Yeah, at Ford, actually, the guiding principle between the decision of build in-house or partner we buy, I think, is the differentiated capability and the competitive advantage. If the answer is yes, we go for building. And when the advantage lies outside, like any SaaS solution, COTS platform, or open source components where speed, scalability, and ecosystem maturity are already proven, we choose to partner or buy. And to your second question, and the second part of the question, right? Like, how do we build the ecosystem trust? Again, 3 pillars like governance and transparency, shared accountability, and the cultural fit. Whether it is internal development or doing with partners, I think these become the core ethos.
Okay, great. And Adam, you get to have the last word.
Yeah, sure. No, thanks, sir. I think our partnerships with the OpenAI, the AWS, GCP, et cetera, are so valuable because if we don't have early access to roadmap, if we can't play with these technologies, it's hard for us to advise our clients as best we could, because if we don't know what's coming and have real hands-on experience, it's really challenging. So I think that's valuable. And then the other element, as I mentioned before, is at the same time, I don't think any company should just be like outsourcing this stuff. It's so critical to the differentiation and value going forward that we want to see our clients build those muscles, whether it's co-creation or training or whatever it might be. And just the last point is, partnership, it's business and IT. So it's business IT together. When we see siloed, we see challenges. Maybe something cool is built, but doesn't have the value or it doesn't have the adoption. So we work really hard to make sure we're bringing us together with both sides of the organizations to really make sure we can get to that scale and value.
Great. Thank you so much. So it's been a pleasure to moderate this session for me. And I want to thank all of you. You're all very busy people that you've taken time out to come on this session. And it's not often that we get experts from semiconductor, industrial, automotive, and technology in a room together in a virtual room. So I really enjoyed it. I'm sure anybody who's viewing this session will take a lot of insights and see that while the industries are different, there are some common points. And I think we're all excited about the future that AI holds for us and how the world will transform. So I want to thank you very much and thanks for participating and really appreciate all your perspectives. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Arun. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.